August is apparently the month where every home comes with a problem. Your farmhouse needs rebuilding, your magical tower is full of political nonsense, your walking cottage has chicken legs, your ship is frozen, your space station is covered in fungus, and somewhere beyond that, a corporation is once again making space substantially worse for everybody. So, honestly, a pretty normal month in video games. From long-awaited 1.0 launches to strange new survival games and one considerably larger adventure sneaking into my indie-dominated schedule, these are the 9 games I'll be launching in August 2026. And if any of them turn out to be as interesting as they look, you will probably be seeing them again on this channel. Up first, Ostronauts. Starting us off on August 3rd, Ostronauts is finally leaving early access after nearly 6 years. This is a deeply systemic spaceship survival game from Blue Bottle Games, the developer behind NEO Scavenger. You build, salvage, and operate your own ship inside a solar system where everything seems to be held together by used parts, suspicious wiring, and the dwindling emotional stability of your crew. You are not just designing the ship, you are managing its atmosphere, power, temperature, and equipment while your crew develops relationships, needs, and opinions. Which is lovely, because apparently keeping everybody oxygenated was not enough responsibility. The shipbuilding system is extremely physical. You can salvage components from derelicts, drag them back aboard, and install them piece by piece, but those abandoned ships can contain hazards, structural problems, and other things that make crawling through dead vessels somewhat less relaxing than it initially sounds. Version 1.0 brings new endgame content, a bounty system, Steam Workshop support, additional station designs, tutorial improvements, and a substantial stability and quality of life pass. Ostronauts has always looked like a game for people who want their space survival messy, mechanical, and slightly overwhelming. The sort of game where learning how your ship works is half the challenge, and accidentally discovering why it no longer works is the other half. I'm extremely curious to see whether 1.0 can make all of that depth more approachable without cleaning away the wonderfully hostile machinery beneath it. Fields of Mistria. Then, on August 5th, Fields of Mistria reaches its version 1.0 exactly 2 years after entering early access. This is the magical farming RPG that combines the familiar rhythm of crops, fishing, mining, and relationships with a colorful 1990s anime-inspired world. You arrive in the town of Mistria after an earthquake causes serious damage to the region. In exchange for a piece of land, you help rebuild the town, restore its facilities, and become part of a community that has already earned the game a remarkably devoted audience. And that community is a major reason this one stands out. Fields of Mistria has built its reputation around characters who feel involved in one another's lives. They speak to each other, maintain relationships beyond the player, and make the town feel like it existed before we arrived, with a watering can and apparently limitless appetite for municipal repair work. The 1.0 update completes the town restoration storyline, raises the heart cap, adds proposal and wedding events, introduces marriage and children, expands dungeon quests and rewards, and raises the town renown cap to 100. It is also keeping its current price of $13.99 US at launch, which is honestly refreshing considering how much has been added throughout early access. Fields of Mistria is easily the most established game on this list. The question is no longer whether it has a strong foundation, it is whether 1.0 can finally bring all of its long-running systems and relationships to a satisfying conclusion. Also, yes, you can marry the human form of a dragon. I know what some of you are doing on August 5th. Also arriving on August 5th is Kill the Shadow, a narrative detective RPG from Shadowlight. You play as Lucas, a former officer investigating a series of deeply strange murders across Dark Tide City, an alternate post-war city still divided by something that happened 10 years ago. And Lucas has a rather unusual investigative partner. The Shadow is a creature attached to him that can consume memories, reconstruct the final moments of the dead, and rewind events surrounding a crime, which is incredibly useful to Lucas. It may also have its own motives, much less useful, but investigations do give you considerable freedom in how you approach them. You can question witnesses, bribe people, apply psychological pressure, piece evidence together on a deduction board, or apparently just beat information out of someone if diplomacy has wandered off for the afternoon. Your choices affect how cases unfold, the relationships you build, and the path you take toward the truth. Even that truth truth may not be entirely reliable, when the creature helping you uncover it is also capable of rewiring time. Visually, Kill the Shadow places 2D pixel characters inside detailed 3D environments, creating this strange collision between retro detective RPG and grimy neon-lit noir. Darktide City stretches from industrial ruins and shipwreck districts to a crowded walled slum, with each area carrying another piece of the city's history. The demo has already earned very positive reception on Steam, and a revised version is currently available with an overhauled rewind system. A detective RPG where I can manipulate time, interrogate suspects, and potentially kiss the person responsible for everything? That is an alarming number of ways to compromise an investigation, and obviously I am very interested. Ambrosia Sky Act 2. On August 6th, Ambrosia Sky receives its second and final act. Ambrosia Sky is a first-person science fiction game set across abandoned space colonies consumed by a dangerous alien fungus. You play as Dahlia, a field agent sent to clean up the infestation, recover the dead, and investigate what happened to the people who once lived there, including Maeve, a woman from Dahlia's past who remains at the center of the story. Mechanically, it combines immersive sim exploration with the deeply satisfying act of power washing something disgusting off a wall. Except the mess is alive and sometimes it explodes. Different fungal growths react to different sprays and environmental conditions, while the abandoned stations hide personal belongings, bodies, and fragments of the relationships destroyed by that outbreak. The thing that interests me the most is that this is not simply a cleaning game wearing a science fiction coat. The cleanup is part of how you process the disaster. You are making these spaces navigatable again while slowly learning who occupied them and why returning here matters so much to Dahlia. Act 2 will conclude the story, add new locations and mission types, introduce more fungal specimens, and rework progression with additional upgrades for Dahlia and her sprayer. It will also arrive as a free update for everyone who already owns Act 1. Cleaning alien fungus and uncovering sapphic yearning at the end of the world? Yes, obviously I want to know how this ends. Sovereign Tower. Also arriving on August 6th is Sovereign Tower, a story-rich management RPG from Wild Wits and Curve Games. You play as the new sovereign of a magical tower, which means managing your kingdom through a round table populated by advisors, nobles, and other highly confident people who all believe their emergency should become your emergency. You will hear petitions, make political decisions, send agents on expeditions, and attempt to keep the kingdom functioning while shaping what kind of ruler you want to become. But Sovereign Tower is not presenting leadership as a clean series of right and wrong answers. Every decision can affect the kingdom, your resources, and your relationships with the people surrounding you. Even your agents have their own personalities and competencies, meaning that choosing the right person for an assignment could be just as important as choosing the right response. Visually, it has a wonderfully animated storybook style, and tonally it appears it is willing to let fantasy politics become absurd without making the decisions themselves meaningless. I love management games that make their systems feel personal. I do not simply want to watch a number go down because I made the wrong choice. I want to know who is angry with me, why they are angry with me, and whether I can solve the situation by sending them on a dangerously long expedition. Sovereign Tower already has a demo available. I have touched it and it has touched me. Because if you are going to give me a magical kingdom and a table full of problems, I am at least going to find out how badly I can govern it. Frozen Ship. On August 7th, Frozen Ship enters early access. Frozen Ship is a first-person survival adventure set on a frozen post-apocalyptic Earth. You lead an expedition across the wasteland aboard a massive mobile ship carrying a crew of 20 people and everything needed to establish a future settlement. So this is not survival in the usual sense of chopping down a tree, making a tiny axe, and immediately attempting to fight a bear. Your survival is connected to an entire moving community. You will leave the ship to explore the procedurally generated world, gather supplies, and investigate abandoned locations. Back aboard, you must manage resources, assign jobs, maintain morale, and make decisions affecting everyone traveling with you. The developers describe it as a combination of open-world survival, narrative adventure, and mobile city management, with political conflicts and competing settlements waiting beyond the snow. That combination is why Frozen Ship has my attention. Your vessel is both a base and a responsibility. Every expedition away from it could provide the resources your people need, or create an entirely new disaster to carry home. There is also something immediately compelling about dragging your entire settlement across a dead world, because staying still is no longer an option. Frozen Ship recently shifted its launch to August 7th because of Steam's age rating review process, rather than a development problem. It is still entering early access, though, so the big question will be how much of this ambitious combination is properly functioning at launch. If it works, Frozen Ship could sit somewhere between the Long Dark and Frostpunk, with the added anxiety of knowing your city can move but cannot necessarily escape your decisions. Security 51. Security 51 was originally expected in July, but has now moved to August 12th to give the team additional time for polish. You play as a security officer stationed deep inside Area 51, checking the identities and clearance levels of everyone attempting to use an elevator descending into the facility. The job sounds simple. Verify their papers, confirm where they're permitted to go, and stop anyone who doesn't belong. Except you're not only looking for spies or forged documents, you're checking whether the person standing in front of you is still human, or depending on the day, human adjacent. Employees may give incorrect answers, behave strangely, or present paperwork that looks a little too perfect. As your equipment improves, you gain access to tools like full body x-rays or temperature regulators, wherein you can start finding some very peculiar things buried inside a person's body. If something feels wrong, you can quarantine the suspect. Sometimes that means locking up an innocent janitor. Sometimes it means discovering that a supposedly secure containment cell has been ripped open from the inside. Security 51 is mixing papers, please style inspection with SCP paranoia, and that is an extremely effective foundation for horror. You are not helpless because you lack information. You are helpless because to understand how badly one incorrect decision could end. The elevator you guard moves up and down quickly, much like your heart rate. Defender of the Crown? The legend returns. On August 13th, Defender of the Crown returns, 40 years after the original appeared on the Amiga. Developed by Black Tower Basement and published by Nord Current Labs, The Legend Returns rebuilds the strategy adventure that had players raising armies, conquering territory, and storming castles in an attempt to unite England under Saxon rule. So we're going way back. And it is doing considerably more than putting cleaner art over an old game. The package includes 3 different versions. Retro Mode preserves the original Amiga experience with quality of life improvements. Classic Mode rebuilds the campaign with modern visuals, refined mechanics, and a smoother interface. Then there is Kingdom Mode, which apparently looked at this 40-year-old strategy game and decided it also needed procedurally generated maps, dice mechanics, and roguelite progression. Sure, why return with one identity when you can arrive carrying 3? The original mattered because it made strategy feel cinematic, at a time when games rarely looked anything like it. But preserving something historically important and making it genuinely compelling 40 years later are 2 different jobs. That's what makes this version interesting. I never played the Amiga original, so I won't be bringing 40 years of nostalgia with me. Just a kingdom to conquer and a deeply questionable amount of confidence. Servant of the Lake. On August 13th, Rusty Lake opens the doors to Servant of the Lake. And if you are familiar with Rusty Lake, you already know that opening a door is rarely a reassuring development. Servant of the Lake is a premium point-and-click adventure set in the same surreal universe as Cube Escape, The Past Within, and Underground Blossom. You arrive at the Vanderboom estate in 1936 as David Eleander, a newly employed servant responsible for preparing the house for Mr. Vanderboom and his guests. That begins with relatively ordinary housework, arranging rooms, completing tasks, and ensuring everything is properly prepared. Unfortunately, this is Rusty Lake. The house hides a dark history. The family surrounding it is deeply connected to the wider lore, and even the most harmless object has a reasonable chance of becoming part of an elaborate ritual or doing something no household object should ever do. Servant of the Lake promises hand-painted environments, surreal puzzles, and another piece of the long-running Rusty Lake mystery. What makes these games so effective is their ability to turn every simple interaction into something deeply uncomfortable. You open a drawer, you move a picture, you prepare dinner, then suddenly you are holding a human tooth and nobody has explained why. A demo is already available, and this feels like a perfect candidate for a closer look before release. I do enjoy a game that gives me a job and then suddenly reveals that the employee handbook was hiding several extremely important pages. REKA leaves early access and reaches version 1.0 on August 18th. You play as an aspiring witch traveling through the countryside under the guidance of Baba Yaga. Along the way, you gather plants, learn witchcraft, meet villagers, and build a home atop an enormous pair of chicken legs, which is already one of the strongest housing arrangements in video games. Your cottage is both your home and traveling companion. You can expand it piece by piece, decorate the interior, and watch it stride through the forest while you sit comfortably inside, presumably pretending that this is a perfectly normal commute. The world draws heavily from Slavic folklore, with dense forests, quiet villages, and supernatural encounters built around exploration rather than traditional combat. REKA entered early access in 2024 with a beautifully central idea but a clearly unfinished journey. Version 1.0 will bring the conclusion to REKA and Baba Yaga's story, expanded gameplay, additional building options, improved tools, a redesigned interface, and further polish. This is the kind of 1.0 release that interests me because the game's identity was never the problem. The walking cottage, the folklore, and the atmosphere gave REKA something immediately distinct. Now it needs the finished progression and narrative structure to make that identity feel like a full adventure rather than an extremely beautiful place still waiting for its furniture. I want the strange forest. I want the witchcraft. I want the giant chicken house. I would also like all three of those things to lead me somewhere. Polylithic. On August 25th, Polylithic leaves early access and reaches version 1.0. This is a colorful Stone Age survival game where humanity is still several inventions and one angry saber-tooth away from becoming the dominant species. You begin as a Paleolithic hunter-gatherer, crafting tools and hunting animals much better equipped for this situation than you are, but Polylithic eventually expands beyond keeping one fragile, prehistoric person alive. You will be recruiting tribe members, establishing settlements, unlocking new technologies, and gradually guiding your people toward the Neolithic age. Villagers can work, age into elders, and help turn your scattered camp into something resembling civilization. Or you can attempt it with up to 9 other players, which means humanity's future may depend upon the 10 people agreeing where to place a storage chest, which, as history shows, is a flawless system, and nothing could possibly go wrong. What gives Polylithic its identity is its tone. Most prehistoric survival games make the Stone Age relentlessly brown, brutal, and miserable. This one is bright, low poly, and openly chaotic without removing the danger of being a soft human surrounded by animals with substantially larger teeth. And if the game offers me a choice between taming a dog and a hyena, I understand that the dog is a more sensible choice, but I will be choosing the option future archaeologists struggle to explain. Breathedge 2. Finally, on August 31st, Breathedge 2 enters early access. The original Breathedge combined first-person space survival, crafting, and exploration with a relentless commitment to making every situation more ridiculous than necessary. The sequel continues the story of the man as he attempts to stop the Breathedge Corporation alongside a larger crew of companions. This time, you'll manage and upgrade your own spaceship, recruit crew members, pilot vehicles, and travel through multiple star systems and planets. Your companions have individual roles, needs, and personal goals. Ignore them, or your responsibilities as captain, and they may begin ignoring you. Which feels fair, but becomes less charming when everybody is inside a failing spaceship. The original game always had an interesting tension at its center. Beneath the chickens, coffins, and increasingly questionable jokes, there was an ambitious space survival game. The question is whether Breathedge 2 can give those systems enough room to work without burying them under its own comedy. The ship is bigger, the crew is larger, the corporation remains a problem. Space, once again, has become an HR incident. Resonance, A Plague Tale Legacy. On August 27th, we have the significantly larger game on this list. Resonance, A Plague Tale Legacy. Developed by Asobo Studio and published by Focus Entertainment, Resonance is a prequel set 15 years before A Plague Tale Requiem, and is part of one of my favorite franchises. This time, we follow Sophia as she returns to her homeland in search of the truth about her past and her connection to the ancient forces surrounding the macula. Sophia is not Amicia. She is older, physically capable, and considerably more willing to meet violence with violence. That means Resonance is moving away from the stealth-heavy vulnerability of the previous games and toward more direct melee combat with parries, counters, and brutal finishing moves. The story will also move between Sophia's medieval journey and events in the ancient Minoan world, using puzzles and linked timelines to explore the history beneath the series. I adore the emotional weight of A Plague Tale, but I am curious and slightly cautious about this shift. So much of the previous games worked because Amicia and Hugo were constantly outmatched. Their vulnerabilities shaped every encounter. Sophia gives Asobo an opportunity to explore this world from a completely different angle, but stronger combat cannot be allowed to replace the intimate character writing that made the series matter. Resonance launches on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series consoles with day one Game Pass availability. This may be the least indie game here, but story-rich, emotionally destructive, and filled with ancient secrets, it was never escaping my watch list. Those are the games leading my August watch list. We have farming, witchcraft, political bureaucracy, alien imposters, prehistoric hyenas, and enough broken spacecraft to keep several insurance departments employed indefinitely, assuming the insurance adjusters survive, that is. I'll be reaching out to several of these developers and looking for opportunities to explore their games more closely, so let me know which ones you want to see covered on the channel. Right now, August looks strange, ambitious, and deeply unsafe, exactly how I like it.